What's up guys, it's Manga Time. Once again, at long last, we have another Bleach chapter. After about a month of waiting because Kubo's been pretty ill unfortunately. But finally I'm here today to bring you my review of Bleach 612 Dirty. But before I begin, I'd really just want to give a quick shout out to my new channel I've made, Tomo2304. It's just about games. I'd super appreciate it if you guys went over in there and gave it a subscribe. The link to the channel is going to be over here somewhere on the screen. I just so appreciate if you guys gave it a look and gave it some support. That'd be so great because it's just trying to get off the ground at the moment, and I just really appreciate it. On to the chapter though, and because we've had to wait so long for this chapter, I think people are going to have slightly different feelings about it than they would have done normally. It's one of those chapters where it's very much a transition chapter. It's one of those chapters where you see an awful lot of characters and they're all kind of interacting, and you can kind of tell it's the end of one part and the start of something else. Personally, I tend to quite enjoy those chapters, so I'm going to like this chapter a bit more than the average kind of person who doesn't like this kind of chapters. But, let's go through it and pick out the interesting points as always. So it starts off, unfortunately, behind the end of last week's, not last week's chapter, but last chapter, which is generally kind of annoying because it does mean that pages can be wasted. We see the king's palace, and like there are those guards with the blinds over their eyes, just like lying dead everywhere. Because Yhwach is now advancing on the king. And he says some very interesting things, but as always, they're very cryptic, and they're very, very vague. He says to the Soul King, and this is if manga reader's translation is to be trusted, because I'm pretty certain the last line in the chapter is wrong. But he says, you're an imperfect god who can't even run away. And that's quite an interesting thing to say. Like, why is he imperfect? What does that actually mean? Urahara then cuts down one of the big curtains and it says, I'm going to put an end to the humiliation that I've had to suffer so far. Again, what does that mean? Does this imply that this whole kind of battle is way more personal for Urahara than we first thought? It's possible, since the Soul King is Yhwach's father, apparently, so that does add a new layer of things. We then get to kind of see the Soul King again, but it's always very, shaded, very hard to see him. But it's really weird. He looks like a mannequin or a doll, and he doesn't have any arms either. So whether it's a literal meaning of being incomplete, and he just doesn't have a full body or something like that, but we just need to know way more about the Soul King, because we just don't know anything about him yet. But Yhwach then advances on him. He's like, you probably knew this day would come. And he still has his almighty eyes going on. He then stabs the Soul King through the chest and says that the Soul King can also see the future. Which I think we knew already, because I think he says that at the end of last week's chapter, which implies then that the Soul King passed this ability down to his son. We then get a close-up of the Soul King's eyes, and the Soul King is just fucking weird. Like, I really wish we knew more about the Soul King, because he stands there, completely emotionless, just vacant, literally like a doll when he's getting stabbed. Says nothing, does nothing. So I really hope that he's not dead. If he's dead, that's rubbish, Kubo, because you can't build up the Soul King for years, literally years, and then kill him off in the space of 2 chapters. It's not going to happen. As Yhwach says, my father, we get a glimpse of Ichibei and Ichigo, and that's kind of weird. Don't tell me that they're all part of the same family. I don't know what the significance necessarily of that is, but I'm interested in finding out more, basically. We then get the chapter title, and this is where people might get disappointed. It actually returns to the Seirei tale, the Quincy Vandenreich city. I didn't mind too much because it's a nice break from the action we've had recently, and we see Rukia and Renji arrive at what has basically become the barracks of the Shinigami, and I really like this because it feels more like a war, far more like a war than the Fate Karakura Town arc did. Because there are barracks, the Shinigami have set up a stronghold where they're all going to try and kind of meet up, but there's still fighting going on elsewhere, and it's good because there are foot soldiers around, and it just feels a bit more like a battle, at least in my opinion. So Renji and Rukia arrive and they see Shinji, which is neat because we haven't seen him since he got off-screened, apparently by Basby, though that's not actually how it happened. Shinji's like, oh, so you guys have shown up as well, which is, fair enough, because everyone is arriving at the barracks, and Renji's like, looks like you got beaten up pretty badly. And then Shinji's like, such a wound, but then for some reason Omaida jumps in and he's like, it's nothing to worry about, And then basically, Omaida reveals that when Basby confronted them with Burner Finger 3, thanks to Shinji and Omaida's Zanpakuto, they were able to block the enemy's attack. Which seems pretty weird to me, and if I'm completely honest, it feels like a bit of a cop-out. Like, if that is the case, I'd have liked to have seen that. I'd have liked to have seen Shinji tackle Basby for, just even briefly. But apparently we're supposed to swallow the fact that Gagetsaburi was able to block Burner Finger, and it was like it was a wave of lava as well. It wasn't even just the basic one. But whatever. I don't really understand why Omeda is also suddenly like, I won't forgive anyone who's rude to Captain Hirako. That's a bit weird. I kind of feel like it's just so that Kubo can fit in this line from Renji, which is about Omeda apparently calling the Vizards outsiders when they first rejoined the Gotei, which is quite interesting. It does show that there was some animosity towards them when they first arrived, which we kind of expected there would be. Renji then also questions why Omeda brought his little sister along with him. She's also kind of fine now, apparently, after being stabbed by BG9. And then Omeda gets smacked by Soi Fon. Soi Fon, who apparently is okay again. I don't really care. Like, Soi Fon's literally one of my least favourite captains. But it's nice to see her. It's nice to get I like these chapters. It's nice getting confirmation on where people are. And I actually think Kubo's done a fairly good job this week of rounding up a lot of where people are, what people's statuses are. So now we know that Omeda, Soi Fon, the girl, Omeda's sister, Marechio, that's the one, and Shinji are all like back at the barracks with Renji and Rukia. And it just makes things a bit neater. Kubo's making things a bit neater by having everyone return to the barracks, basically. And Soi Fon seems a bit different in her demeanour. If you remember, because it was ages ago now, I think about it, absolutely ages ago, that she fought BG9. If you remember, BG9 destroyed her, but then thanks to Omeda, she was able to get her Bankai back, and the two of them essentially worked together to take down the Sturmritter. So it's unsurprising that Soi Fon's demeanour has changed slightly. She still hits Omeda, but technically this time it's so he doesn't wake his little sister up. And then even when he collapses, she says sorry. She then says that, thanks to Momo, basically everyone's injuries have been healed. So Momo is apparently a badass healer. So at least she's kind of found her position in the fight. And basically, Soi Fon's like, we can't leave Omeda's sister behind, which is kind of uncharacteristic for Soi Fon, especially considering she once said that, if a comrade's being killed, let them die and use the opportunity to kill the enemy. So Renji then points out it looks like Captain Soi Fon's got a bit kinder, to which Rukia says that, she was always kind, which I don't think necessarily true. So, yeah, it's kind of nice to see that she might be changing a little bit. What is slightly weird, however, is the fact that Marechio seems to be the only resident involved in this battle whatsoever. I honestly find that kind of weird. Like, Kubo clearly wanted to add some kind of civilian aspect to this fight, but he hasn't really done it. Marechio's just kind of there. She got injured by BG9, and then all of a sudden she's still the only resident around, at least I think, anyway. So that's kind of weird. But anyway, Soi Fon then says, let's go inside to the barracks, the laboratory, and Renji is under the impression that everyone else is showing up, implying all the captains that are out fighting, and so Shinji apparently. Apparently they got a desperate message that ordered everyone to return to these barracks, even if it meant abandoning their fights. So everyone's probably already here. So Soi Fon opens the door and we get to see the barrack, and it's completely empty. Basically completely empty. The only people that are there are Urahara, Yoroichi's little brother, Nanao, and Byakuya. Absolutely no sign of the Vizards, which is really weird because I'm pretty sure they just arrived, not that long ago. So that's really strange. But then there's also none of the other captains are there either, which, surprises people. But before all that happens, we get quite a nice little interaction between Yushiro, which is Yoroichi's brother, and Soi Fon. And, she's like, oh my god, you've grown so much. And then she's like, I'll give you pocket money, which I kind of thought was funny because I think it kind of implies that Soi Fon's like, I'll look after you while Yoroichi's not here, basically. You know what Soi Fon's like. She's proper weird when it comes to Yoroichi. And she gets this look on her face, which you've just never seen before from Soi Fon, which is funny. It's funny. But then we get back to the kind of serious matters, and Shinji's like Urahara, where the hell is everyone? And Urahara gives us a nice little rundown of the current statuses of everybody. First of all, we finally get a long overdue status update on Komamura. Urahara says, the 7th Division are going to be moving on their own from now on, which is big news, man. And we get one of my favourite panels of the whole chapter. And it's Iba standing in front of Komamura, who is, as we know now, a complete wolf. And he's just, standing on all fours and all that. And he's, what it looks like, fending off a bunch of soldats, which is awesome. That's what I mean about the fight still going on outside. And unfortunately, Iba apparently requested a medical team, but it was rejected. Probably because everyone's dead. And everyone's already working on the people who are back at the barracks as well. So unfortunately for now, Iba and Komamura are out in the fight somewhere on their own, attempting to hold their own. So hopefully Iba's going to make it back to the stronghold with Komamura, but we'll have to see. Byakuya then also, this is interesting. Byakuya apparently told them that Rose and Kensei are going to move with Miuri. Now we know that Rose and Kensei are dead, and Miuri is using them as its own personal corpses. Now I like this because when Urahara says this, Byakuya remains silent, and Shinji gives them a pretty shifty look. Shinji possibly knowing already that Rose and Kensei might be at least jeopardized. Either that or he's just like, something's not right here. So I kind of like that Kubo throws that in. And it'll be interesting to find out more. And Urahara's like, it doesn't matter because Kurotsuchi's going to join us at some point, because if the Soul Society disappears, he's pretty buggered as well. And we get to see a picture of what Miuri and Nemo are up to, and they seem to have like 2 big caskets. Now, it's possible that Rose and Kensei are in those caskets, but it's also possible that Toshiro and Matsumoto are in them, or that all of them are in them. But we'll get into Toshiro and Matsumoto in a second. We then get a status update on Kenpachi, who, as you know, was being obliterated by the Femritters. Hisagi, Ikaku, and Yumichika, who got wrecked by Giselle. Apparently, Ikaku, Yumichika, and Hisagi are basically fine, but Captain Zaraki is seriously wounded. That's the second time in this arc that Kenpachi's been wrecked, so not going great for him. Shinsui then also reminds us that Shinsui has gone to room 46. No word on Ukitake, no word on the mysterious Kamikake either, so either they don't know about Ukitake, or Urahara's leaving out for some specific reason. He then reveals that they haven't received any information about the 10th Division whatsoever. So Miuri is clearly hiding from them that Toshiro and Matsumoto are zombies, but we don't know why. Is it that Toshiro and Matsumoto are completely dead, or he's doing something else to them that we just don't know about yet? It's intriguing, and I want to know more. I want to know why Miuri would think to hide this from people, but we'll find out. Shinji then says, what are you planning on doing after everyone finally arrives? And Urahara gives us the supposed big reveal that they're going to break into the Soul King's palace, though if I'm honest, I saw this coming anyway. Everyone is going to the Royal Palace apparently, which is quite a big deal. They're going to have a big fight up there. And Urahara says that if they use all the energy produced from all the captains, they should be able to get there fine. Which does lead me to wonder, when are the Fullbringers showing up and when are the Arankas showing up? Because they're clearly all going to go and fight together, but unfortunately we still have no answers. We then see that Ichigo and the others are flying towards the King's actual cocoon palace, and they're using Orahime's shield to fly, which is quite neat. That's a nice new ability she's got. So yeah, it's cool to see them all go up. But as they fly, Ichibei, who is still sitting on the floor, leaves us with a fairly ominous message. He says, sorry humans, but we can't win against Yhwach, and that's the end of the chapter. Now, it's quite an ominous message to finish against, and it's also quite strange, because just last chapter, Ichibei is like, please stop Yhwach. So there's a couple of reasons for this. Now, apparently this final sentence is wrong. Apparently he says, you can't win against Yhwach, implying the humans specifically. Now, I'm going to entertain a theory that has been bandied around quite a bit lately, and that's that if Yhwach becomes the Soul King, the Royal Guard are forced to work for him, which may be why Ichibei's acting so strangely at the end of this chapter. I think it's possible. It would even the odds. If all of these characters are now going to enter the Royal Realm for a fight, there aren't many Quincy, but if Yhwach gets all the Royal Guard on his side, he gets those, plus the 4 elites, plus Uryu and Hashworth and himself. It becomes way more formidable. So I definitely think we could see something like that happen. But other than that, I don't really have... Unless Ichibei has just realised that the Soul King has been stabbed, and he's like, holy crap, it's basically over. We can't do anything. But that's it really for the chapter, guys. There's not a whole lot more to talk about. It was just a talking chapter. It was a status update chapter, finding out where everyone was and what everyone was up to. I'm interested to find out more about Hitsugaya and Matsumoto, what's actually happened to them. I liked the emphasis on Shinji in this chapter. I thought that was really nice. I hope he actually gets a proper fight at some point, though. That'd be really good. As for the end of the chapter, it was nice and ominous and should set us up nicely for next week. That's it for this week's chapter though, guys. I'm going to drop an 8 out of 10 on it. I wish there'd been a little bit more content, but aside from that, the content we got was good, I thought. I enjoyed the interaction between the characters, seeing old characters again, like Soi Fon, who I haven't seen in bloody ages. And I love the fact that everyone's like coming together at the barracks. It really makes it feel a bit neater. And it's just really, I really liked a lot of what happened actually this week. So let me know in the comments below, guys, what you thought of this week's chapter, and please do check out my new channel as well. I'd so appreciate you guys just going over there and subscribing if you're into games. That's really cool. We get some discussions going. That'd be wonderful. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, guys, and until next time, which hopefully won't be another month, I'll see you then. See ya.